Call this meeting to order.
Chair, I'm sorry I was late. I had a few technical difficulties here this morning, but I think everything's okay now.
No problem. We can see and hear you well. Thank you for being here. And we would like to recognize that we are on the unceded territories of the First Nations within our regional boundaries, and we're grateful to be here. Could I have someone move approval of the agenda? Moved by Director Crompton, seconded by Director Birch-Jones. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. I will now read the virtual policy again. This meeting is being held virtually with all meeting participants attending via electronic communications in order to adhere to the provincial health officer's orders respecting physical distancing requirements as a measure to prevent COVID-19. Directors will be involved in and participate in the meeting. Directors are to identify themselves when advising the chair if they wish to be placed on the speakers list, and this will be done by raising your hands. Directors will mute their device unless they wish to speak. With respect to a vote, directors are only required to state a nay vote. Directors attending the meeting are required to verbally advise the chair if they leave the meeting and when you return, so that this can be recorded in the minutes. Directors will text message the CAO if they have a technical difficulty with their computer. If you are unable to text the CAO, the directors will email the chair. If a technical difficulty occurs and it becomes apparent that a director has become disconnected from the meeting will be recessed until the connection status can be restored. Directors who declare a conflict of interest will be placed in the waiting room, and we ask that you stay in close to your computer until such time as we readmit you to the meeting. If possible, any chat function will be disabled. Could I have someone move 3.1, which is that we are excluding in-person attendance at this May 27th meeting on the basis of the order of the Public Health Officer on gatherings and events dated December 2nd, which prohibits in-person attendance at board meetings. Moved by Director Pettengill, seconded by Director Demare. Is there anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And we will now go to number 4, regional moment of Area D.
Well, thank you. Am I muted? No, I'm not muted. Okay. So I decided that I wouldn't talk to you about toilets. You've heard enough about that. I was going to talk about the murder that I saw on the end of the spit last weekend, but I decided Vivian would be the only one interested in that, so I won't be mentioning that. I thought I would start. Hi, Philippa, there you are. Philippa's got some photos, so we're going to share that. So if you could put that first photo up. Area D has a reputation for sort of toy poodles and manicured lawns, but I just wanted to let you know that we do have a grizzly, a resident grizzly. So we're vying with A, B, and C now to be recognized as a wilderness area. He lives up by hole number 10 on the golf course. Been seen lots of times. Devon is well aware of him. The Conservation Service are aware of him, and our hope is that he will survive the summer. So anyway, I'm not talking about that either. But what I thought I would do is just give you an update, a visual update of what's happening at Britannia Beach. I mean, when I first joined this board 6 years ago, or 6.5 years ago, whatever it is, I thought I was going to be drinking a pint in the Britannia pub within a couple of years, and we're still 2 years away from it. So we're going to go through just a quick visual of what is happening now, because it's quite exciting. Things are beginning to move, and after all this time, the permits are all in place, the studies have been done, and stuff is happening. So Philippa, if you could stick that next slide up, please. If you've been to Britannia, you'll recognize this, the blue bus. This is going to be the last thing that is moved. When the commercial area is complete, this will be the last thing that is moved out. It sits on highway right-of-way, so it's not on the Britannia development. And they're going to leave it in place until all the work is done, and it gives workers a place to to eat. Next one, please. That's the sales center. That was the first building that was authorized for use, and that's where there'll be. It's got the. I think some of us went in there last time. It's got the model of the development in there and some First Nations art, and it's really quite attractive inside. Next one, please. That's where the community hall was. It's at the bank on top of the creek, just beyond that fence. You dips down to the creek. That area will be built up, and it'll be rip-rap and all that kind of stuff as part of the flood protection. Next one, please. That's the old general store. You'll see on the right-hand side is where the community hall was. That's the old general store. That will be moved away. Next one, please. Oh, I thought I'd just throw that in. Just so before they move these buildings, this is the kind of thing they have to do. Is that you've got the big iron girder underneath, and they have to put another one on top of that, and just to strengthen it all. And it's really quite an involved process to be able to move these things. Next one. That's the community hall now. You can see on the left-hand side the general store that we just looked at. And that general store would be pulled round and will sit parallel with the community hall. It's raised up as high as that because that's going to be the level that it will be at. That just gives you an indication of how much more fill there has to be brought in. Let's look at the next one, please. So you can see that they've got it well secured and everything like that, but the foundations will be built and there'll be a basement. And in fact, that hall is going to go just a little bit higher than it is right now. So there'll be a basement underneath, which will be for storage only. And then the community hall will be on top. Next one, please. That's the other side of the community hall, just to give you an idea of where we're at. You can see the Mine Museum in the distance there. And on the left-hand side is the, next to the blue bins, that's the daycare. Next one. Oh, where did that come from? Okay, that's another view of the community hall. And oh, I know I took that one, because if you look at the level of the fence, the fill is going to be just a little higher than that. Next one. Now, that's the community hall that you just saw up on stilts, and it's taken from a different angle where there's a lot of fill already in place. And again, to give you an idea of where the level it will be at by the time it is finished. Next one. That's the daycare center, and I thought it looks ugly, and I thought it'd be a good idea to have some of these before pictures, if you like, because by the time this is finished, that building is going to look beautiful. And that is at about the height that it's going to be. And there'll be a basement underneath that as well. Next one. That's the same building from the other end. And you can see they've already started on constructing the foundations. Next one. And that's the first end. I don't know what all that's all about. I think those little red things on top there are just for safety, so you don't impale yourself on those rods. But, next one. That's what that building hasn't been moved yet, and it's quite a big building. That's going to be apartments. Next one. The church in the distance, that will be raised, it'll be moved towards us and raised to about the level of the fence on the right hand side there. Next one. That's from where the community hall is now. That's looking towards the highway, and that gives that fill is already in place, and the bare area in front there, that'll all be built up to the same level as the what appears to be a berm in the distance in the background. It's not a berm. It's the first dumping of fill. Next one. This is from the housing site where the houses are going to be just what direction is it? Just east of the commercial area, and you can see they've already built the fill has already been developed there. So that little yellow building, that's the daycare, which appears to be at ground level, but you saw just now that it's nowhere near ground level. And the building on the left, which is just you can just see the roof, is the old school, and that will have to be raised up to the same level as the daycare center. And the church on the right, that will also, you can see how much that's going to be raised. Next one. Most important building in the development, that is half of the pub. It's a pub that we're looking forward to having open, and it's one where Graham and I had made a plan to meet and have a beer when it first opened. And I'm sorry that won't happen now, but I certainly will be thinking of him. And I don't know if you know, but he did so much work on this development, and just working with the provincial government on permitting and so on, and just put an awful lot of time into it. Anyway, that's an aside. So let's next one. That's called the York building. That will be mostly apartments. And if you sort of look at the lower row of windows, and sort of halfway between the bottom of the window and the bottom of the building, that gives you an indication of how much more that building is going to be raised. So it will go up another, what is that, about 2 feet? And you can see they've already started pouring the foundations there. Next one. Or is that it? Is that it, Philippa? I think it might be. That's it.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Philippa, thank you very much for doing that. So there, I hope you found that of some interest, and see that after all this time that there is some activity. I know the community is really excited about it, and estimation is about 2 years before we can actually go and walk around that little village and go and buy something in a shop. So there's my moment. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer questions.
That was really helpful. I don't know very much about that area, just what you see when you drive by, and it's neat to see the vision kind of coming to life. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. No,
Anyone else have questions?
Hey, Tony, am I on mute?
Nope,
no,
you're good.
I hear you.
Hey, Tony, is Mountain Woman getting relocated, or is it going?
No, yes and no. The actual old blue bus and this structure that you saw there, that's going. That's on its. So if anybody has a use for a fish and chip shop, like if you wanted to put it on the main street of Whistler or something like that, I'm sure we could negotiate something. So the structure is going, but Lynn Cook, who has been running that for, I don't know, 25, 30 years or something like that, she is going to have exactly the same kind of restaurant within the commercial area. And there will be a couple of other restaurants as well. And the deal is that they're going to make sure that they're all set different menus. So they're competition, yes, but sort of structured competition, shall we say.
Cool.
That place is iconic. I hope they keep the sign at least.
Well, they won't be able to keep the open sign, because within the village, I think I'm correct in saying they're not going to have any neon signs at all. Mm-hmm. So that the signage is going to have to be consistent with the kind of thing that would have been there 100 years ago. So wooden boards and painted and so on, like Mountain Woman. I think that really should be saved. It's a part of the history of Britannia.
Yeah, it's very, very cool to see. So we have 10 minutes until our delegations will arrive. What do we have that we can move on to, Director Clark?
Chair Ford, I just want to talk to Tony about his presentation.
Sure.
That was really good, Tony, and I just can't imagine the amount of legwork that has gone in to make that happen. You know, we've got one building here that we're renovating, the Braylor and Pioneer Mines office, which will house the museum. But to take on that many units and all the engineering that has gone into it and so on and so forth, never mind where all the funding's coming from and all that aspect of it, that's tremendous for that community. Good work.
Yeah.
Everybody concerned.
Yeah. Well, all I did was took a few photos. But I do talk to them fairly, the Britannia people, the McDonald's people fairly frequently, and so I will pass on your comments to them. I could have gone for another 15 minutes, and I thought I only had 5 minutes.
Well, no, you can do whatever you want with your moment. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead to 6.1 and ask if the CAO has a verbal update.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I don't have a verbal update today.
Oh, no. Okay. What can I come up with my verbal update? I actually didn't have anything for today. I had it yesterday. Go ahead, please, CAO Helmer.
Thank you, Chair. There was one item you did want to bring forward from yesterday, and it could be slotted under your verbal if you wanted it there, and that was a further discussion about UBCM.
Yes. We have 8 minutes to talk about UBCM ministerial meetings. Can someone refresh me on where we left that? They were on my other notes.
I think we'd had a discussion and come up with all kinds of ideas. We should talk to this minister, that minister, and some other minister. I think what we need to do is agree now on the sort of a list of ministers, and then sort of assign some tasks to people to do some legwork there.
Yes.
This Sal, would you want Maudie on it again? We haven't listed Maudie yesterday.
No, we definitely want Maudie.
Yeah. Any off the top of your head topics that come to the forefront? There's always the maintenance of the Duffy and the Hurley and.
It's
Just-
Road 40,
General
Mission
road
Mountain.
maintenance.
And taking over the
General
hydro
road-
road, taking over the hydro road at Paradise Valley. Might as well introduce that idea to them right now.
Perfect.
And Director Mack, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, just general road maintenance and the contractors living up to their contracts. Because in area C, and I'm sure it's the same elsewhere, our road maintenance is just horrible. And in the last 3 years, it's gone down so dramatically. And nobody seems to be listening over there. So I know our MLA, Jordan Sturdy, is constantly talking to them, and we get very little response. So we need to talk to who's in charge.
Okay. So in the
Duffy Lake-
idea, go ahead, Director Birch-Jones, and then I'll come back to you, Director Demare.
Okay.
No, carry on. I was going to move on to the next topic.
Okay.
Yeah, the Duffy Lake Road, I've been driving it this winter, and it is in the center section, right at the lake. It is brutal.
I don't want them to fix it.
Well, it's actually starting to get dangerous.
Just a couple of washrooms, some information signs.
Well, you've got to be careful about what you wish for, because if you build a big superhighway, you're going to get superhighway traffic, and that's just
The issue is that it's unsafe.
right. So then does it become a summer road?
It needs to get, it really needs a new pavement in that section. It's that bad.
We also have regional transit, old growth, and enforcement and boots on the ground with Destination BC and tourism funding, etc. I think, go ahead, Director Birch-Jones, you had another topic.
No, you just covered it. I wanted to follow up with Minister Conway.
Conroy, yeah.
Conway, yes.
Roy. Yeah. She's,
Thank you.
okay, great.
Have we got anything on there about parks and camping?
I think that's Flynn Row. Parks and camping. I do have that on my list.
Yeah, okay.
And that may be under the Destination BC discussion. So,
Do they have any, did Destination BC have any money to develop parks and camping sites? I don't think so.
no, but how they manage the marketing and sort of traffic diversion to one park versus another, that's a really important strategy.
So, well, once again, I mean, you're tired of hearing this, but the Upper Squamish Valley last weekend was a zoo. They 3 times as many people as they would normally get up there at a weekend. And there's just nothing there there are no services there at all, nothing. And so all that's sort of happening at the moment is scratching the surface and talking about enforcement and you know, trying to do something about the speed that people drive at. And what we need to be talking to someone about developing some facilities for not in the immediate part of the valley where most of the people are living, but up and beyond that, up the Forest Service Road and on the Crown land up there. We need a large, fully serviced campsite. You know, and for them to say, "Oh, we can't do that." I mean, why can't we do that? We do that in other places. We need something up there.
I have Director Richmond, then Director Pettengill.
So the problem is, or the way I see one of the problems is that, you know, parks, although their current budget didn't reflect a lot of extra resources, parks is out there on their own. And a lot of the problems we discuss here are like Paradise Valley, Lillooet Lake. It's all FSR, it's all Flynn Row, and it's falling through the cracks with them because they don't, you know, they have their small budget for rec sites. But because they're not really part of parks, a proposal like you just made, Tony, or just getting more boots on the ground to sort of manage and protect these FSR recreation type areas, it's their ministry isn't given the budget for it, and it doesn't really fall under their mandate the way it does under parks. So that's why I feel it slips through the cracks. I totally agree with you. I think, and yeah, Destination BC is important in this, but I really think it comes down to Flynn Row and their resources and their budget. So I think that's who we want to go after, because those are the areas, you know, Nairn Falls is, you know, and Joffrey and whatever, they're all going to be, you know, the chief, they're all going to be managed by the province to the best of their ability. They'll try to, they're supposedly, you know, with their new management plan, but it's everything outside the parks, right? So to me, it's all Flynn Row. Thanks.
I have Director Pettengill, then Director Demare, then Director Mack.
Yes, thanks. And that mirrors what I've been hearing, where it's Flynn Row, conservation, some of these other bodies. I think when the RCMP spoke to the district, and maybe Councillor Stoner can correct me, but there was, I think, 4 or 5 unattended fires, and I believe one, it seemed like, was purposefully set and left. This is all in the Upper Squamish over the weekend, and so, you know, the enforcement around some of these things is really critical.
Because to your point, then that falls to the local government and your fire department.
No,
So then it becomes your problem.
It's not the District of Squamish problem, because it's not within the district, and their fire department can't respond up there. It's a local problem. It's our problem.
But you must have the reciprocal agreement with the District of Squamish for anything on your periphery. Because a volunteer fire department is there a volunteer fire department in Paradise Valley?
No, we're talking in the Upper Squamish. What they do have is a group of volunteers who have basic training to do some brush fire work, but that's it. And they were able, with that fire last April, to assist the provincial firefighting crews that went in there.
Mhm.
And their assistance was quite critical in helping to control that fire. But no, there's no recognized fire department there.
No.
And I know that Squamish was able to dispatch a vehicle at some point during that fire, but we can't rely on the district of Squamish to sort of be the firefighters for that area because of all one, it's the distance. You've got to go right across the reserve to even get to it.
And it's not just firefighting, it's fire prevention here. It's the fact that, as Chris said, there's all these fires being left burning by campers. We all have stories of locals that go by wreck sites on Sunday afternoons. I know I do. And Strawberry Point, there's people that go from up the road. They go there every Sunday afternoon. They pick up garbage and they put out fires. But these are locals, and without that, one of those fires will take off. So prevention and the boots on the ground to protect it.
So I will go quickly to Director Demare, then Director Mack, and then we'll carry on this conversation later because I don't think it's wrapped up, and we do have our delegations.
Yeah, I've got lots to say on that, so let's save it for later.
Let's save it for after. Okay, thank you so much. Do you want to bring in our delegations? Okay. Okay, good morning, Ms. McIntyre, Mr. LaFontaine. Are we also being joined by, okay, one more person. And Mr. Burliend, did I say that right? Or did I make it? Okay.
Hi, everybody. No, that's perfect.
Welcome, good morning. Thank you for being here. We are grateful for your time, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to tell us. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. So my name is Jen McIntyre, and I manage the Industry Development Unit at Destination BC. So as I know many of you are likely aware, over the last number of years, Destination BC has engaged in destination development planning with community stakeholders such as local government and Indigenous government, tourism organizations and businesses and residents. And the outcome of that was the development of some 22 development plans that are meant to guide the growth and management of tourism over the next decade. In virtually all of these plans, product or experience development and capacity building has been identified as a priority. And that's generally where my business unit comes in. So we deliver and develop programs designed to build capacity with tourism organizations and businesses and encourage new product development. And our focus this year is on piloting programs that support new experience development. So the SPARK program is one of 3 product development models that we are testing. And for this particular program, we're fully funding 4 deliveries of the SPARK program in locations across the province. And I'm pleased to say that the Sea to Sky Highway from Squamish to Lillooet is included in those 4 deliveries. So we had our first planning meeting a few weeks ago, and we're deeply appreciative of the time and commitment that planning committee members are contributing to the success of this project as we move forward. And now I'd like to turn it over to Justin and Alex from the Tourism Innovation Lab so they can share with us details on the SPARK program. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jen. And good morning, everyone. Really pleased to be here. Thanks for the invitation to give a presentation about the lab and the SPARK program. Myself and my colleague, Alex, will be running through. We prepared a brief presentation for you all. And then after, if there's time, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I'll start off and then I'll hand it over to my colleague, Alex, who can introduce himself and do the second part of the presentation. So again, my name is Justin LaFontaine. I'm the program lead with the Tourism Innovation Lab. I'm based in Kingsville, Ontario. So that's where I'm connecting with all of you today. And Alex is based in Squamish. So I'll run through the presentation now, and if we could go to the next slide, please. So very briefly about the lab, the Tourism Innovation Lab, we're a nonprofit tourism development incubator that was created to find, foster, and support new tourism ideas, entrepreneurs, and innovators. So myself, Alex, and a number of co-collaborators a few years ago came together. We'd all been in the tourism development world for 15, 20 years. We've been in the trenches. We've started tourism businesses and startups from scratch. We knew the challenges and barriers that were out there for innovators and entrepreneurs at that very early stage. So we set out essentially to create a platform, or in this case, an incubator, the Tourism Innovation Lab, to really help those in those early stages and provide them with resources and other support to move them to the next level, to build momentum, give them profile, and expand their networks. As I mentioned, I'm based in Ontario. We first launched the lab in 2018, and the lab and the Spark Mentorships and Grants program have now expanded to over 10 regions across this province. We work with a whole range of partners, over 40, including federal, provincial, regional, local organizations, agencies, and corporations. We have new partnerships with Indigenous organizations and Francophone tourism organizations as well. I will add, in the last year or so, we've started collaborating more with technology organizations and partners to really build the connections between those two sectors. We've run the Spark program in Ontario in over 10 regions, as I mentioned, and we've now had over 35 tourism innovators selected who received Spark seed grants and mentorships to date. So again, with our goal to move things forward. The lab and the Spark program are 100% focused on tourism and 100% focused on that early stage. I did want to also thank you all for, again, the support. We're excited to be expanding and bring the Spark program to British Columbia. And a particular shout out to Jen and Amy and the team at Destination BC for working with us. And we're really looking forward to collaborating with all of you. So with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Alex, to continue the presentation. And next slide.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you all for being here and giving us this opportunity. Continuing from the lab, I'll talk a little bit about the Spark Mentorships and Grants program in particular. So the Spark program matches selected candidates with a mentor and provides seed grant basically to help their tourism idea to the next level. So in particular, what the program includes, which Justin briefly talked about, is right now we're kind of in the partners planning stages. So we have a steering committee with the Sea to Sky members, and we've had one of those meetings so far, and we have we're kind of still in this stage right now. Following after that, we have a media launch and regional marketing campaign. So once we know exactly all the dates, everything is confirmed, together with the partners, we kind of establish what the marketing campaign looks like. It's a collaborative effort. And once the program actually launches, that's when we start receiving applications from the general public. So in this particular case, this will include applications that will come from this entire region. So as Jen mentioned in the beginning, basically the entire Sea to Sky corridor. When the applications come in at a particular deadline, once we have all the applications, we have a review jury, which we select. The jury consists of partner representatives and also typically an entrepreneur from an outside region. And that's when we kind of look at all the applications and narrow it down to a smaller group. Eventually, that smaller group, typically 5 finalists, are invited to a finalist pitch session, which is what we call kind of a friendly take on the Dragon's Den style event, where so far, of course, during COVID, these have been virtual. So these finalists get an opportunity to pitch their ideas to a judge panel, which we also recruit. And at the end of this process, the judge panel selects 3 winners of the Spark program. Those 3 winners each receive a 3-month mentorship. This is a pretty important component of our program. We don't pre-select mentors. We kind of work with the winners to understand their needs and areas of support, and then we match them with the right mentor. Each winner also receives a $3,000 seed grant to help them in the, again, early stage development of their ideas. Of course, they also, with this, gain access to a support network of tourism innovators. And this comes from us, from all the partners that are involved, and ongoing guidance and other partner resources that, again, depend on who can bring what to the table. Next slide, please. So at this stage, as we mentioned, the Sea to Sky has been identified as one of the launch regions of the Spark program in British Columbia. And we already have a steering committee that's involved in these in the planning phase that we're in at the moment. So the dates that you see right now on the screen, they are tentative dates, but we're kind of nearing the confirmation of all that. So I'll kind of run through it briefly and then give everybody an opportunity to ask questions. So as I said, we're now in the planning phase. We're planning to launch the actual program on September 1st, so that it doesn't actually fall in like the busiest time in the summer here. So after that, there's about 5 to 6 weeks of the application intake. Within that time period, applications come in. And then also within that time period, we typically do 2 info sessions that are basically online webinars, inviting the general public to attend. And this is an opportunity for people to come and ask questions about the program, get a better idea of whether their tourism idea fits here or not. The deadline for the applications at the moment is set to October 6th. After that, we run through about a 3 or 4 week period of when the review jury looks at all these applications. We have an online scoring form, and that's when we narrow it down to a smaller group. And eventually on November 8th, we're planning to hold the finalist virtual pitch session, which is, like I said earlier, the Dragon's Den style of an event. And after that, we work directly with these winners to pair them up with a mentor, and the mentorship program runs for about 3 months. So at the moment, we have it set for November until January. And finally, at the end of this process, we don't want to leave our winners, Spark winners, kind of on their own. So we always have a next steps meeting during which we invite all the partners, the mentors, and the winners to attend kind of it's an opportunity basically for everybody to come together and hear from the winners what their progress has been like and where they at with their business idea, so that they know that they have additional resources and that network available to them when they need it. That's about it. You can go to the next slide, please, just as our contact information is here. And we're happy to take any questions, of course, that you have. Thank you all.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Let's open the floor for questions. Go ahead, Director Richmond.
Thank you for the presentations. Can you give us a couple of examples of some of the ideas that have emerged for the past winners, some of the projects?
Sure, yeah. It's very, very diverse. So a recent example that comes to mind, this was in Ontario. A couple purchased some land, and they are starting basically a kind of a sunflower farm, inviting the general public to come for different photo opportunities and tours. And I believe there's also a culinary aspect involved in their particular business idea. ideas really range quite a bit. So another example is somebody in Northern Ontario who took over an older building that wasn't being used and is now turning it into kind of an event space where people can come and do different kind of physical activities. There's like a climbing wall there as well. So yeah, Justin, feel free to add more. There's lots of ideas.
We have over 35 in our Spark family at the moment. So sometimes it's thinking about all the children out there. But yeah, absolutely. We have had programs around agritourism. We've had Indigenous experiences. We've come, a few of them have come forward and through our program, Indigenous culinary experiences, forest therapy and forest sanctuary development. We have had arts and culture, so a farm that's transforming itself into an arts and culture destination by including gallery, workshops, and other programs around that. And we have outdoor activities. So a group up in Northwest Ontario creating rappelling experiences in the Thunder Bay area, or new cycling tourism hub in Oxford County. So those are some of the ones. You can go onto our website, tourisminnovation.ca, and click on the Spark page, and you can kind of find out all the other of our Spark winners are listed there, what their ideas about, and who we match them with a mentor. And I'll just add to what Alex said too, in terms of the mentorship. We don't pre-select them, and we really look out into our network and through our partner networks to find fellow entrepreneurs who've been there, done that kind of thing. So the idea is for them to provide that early stage advice, guidance, tips and tricks, what worked, what was successful, with the goal to really give the candidate that positive momentum to put them on a path of success.
Okay, Director Demare, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. Just curious, how is this going to be advertised out to the community in the Sea to Sky region?
Yeah, great question. So that's part of our kind of development of the marketing campaign. It's going to be advertised through all the existing channels that we have and the partners that are involved have. So naturally, there's going to be an online push through social media and any other kind of communication channels and newsletters that are available, again, through partners.
Okay, thank you. This question is for Patricia. Patricia, will the directors all the directors here get a news release that we can share with our communities?
Thanks. Through the chair. Yes, we'll share whatever marketing materials come through the program. I've been involved in the steering committee to date, so I've been sitting in on those meetings and participating in that. So I think the general agreement is that all of the partners represented on the committee will be sharing through our various channels and through you as well. So there's more work to be done on that, on the marketing pieces, but yeah, we'll definitely share those.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Director Birch-Jones and then Director Pettengill.
Thank you. And Patricia, still keeping your attention, the hub, of course, in Lillooet comes to mind. And so I'm happy to hear that you'll be involved in maybe keeping us up to date on this opportunity. I'm also grateful that you've actually given us a little bit of lead time. You're not saying apply by next Tuesday. Thank you for that. We have a new little social enterprise starting up here, which combines some agritourism aspects, some value added, some local arts and culture. And so it sounds like it might be quite a nice fit for your program. So I'll be glad if Patricia keeps us up to date and reminds us of the September opportunity when it comes around. Thank you.
And Director Pettengill, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Coming out of COVID, I'm just wondering, and I apologize if I missed it, is there anything in the selection criteria, like is this targeted at not just my first tourism business, but my first business kind of thing, and that's the audience, or is it also for people who are needing to pivot coming out of COVID? So they have experience in tourism, but they need to do something a little bit different now.
Maybe I'll start and then hand it over to Alex to add anything. But yeah, exactly. We call this program the Spark program, really to spark those new ideas and innovations. The great thing about the program, it's open, to all essentially in the participating regions. So you can be an entrepreneur, existing business, a new business. You can be a community group, a nonprofit organization. So really, we're looking for those ideas. And in Ontario, I can say we've been running the Spark program the last year during COVID in 7-8 regions. And we've had a considerable number of amazing ideas that have come forward from existing operators to tourism businesses that have looked and moved forward with ideas to develop a pivot or a different angle to their business, attract a new market, for example, depending on the challenges or the barriers they have, for their business itself or for the region. So absolutely.
Okay, this is great work. It's exciting to see how this comes together. I think anything that kind of brings us together over these ideas over the coming months will be welcomed by many communities, and it's exciting. Thank you. Any final comments or questions from anyone on the board? I think we'll say goodbye at this time and we'll be in touch.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
for having us.
Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Okay, our second delegation is another angle of this. It's Destination BC, and we've got members of the steering committee, I think they're all on the Sea to Sky Council. So let's bring them in. I assume they're here.
Yes, we have 2 of the 3 here. I'll admit Ms. Goodwin and Ms. Plant.
Okay. There we are.
Mr. Rama is also here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Ms. Goodwin, Ms. Plant, Mr. Hirima. Welcome to this Committee of the Whole session of the SLRD. We're grateful to have you here, and we're looking forward to hearing your presentation. Who would like to begin?
I'll go ahead and begin if I'm allowed to at this point.
Certainly. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan Harima, and I'm a senior advisor with the Vancouver Coast and Mountains region, which is managed by Destination BC. I'm joined by my colleagues Laura Plant and Karen Goodwin, who will introduce themselves in a moment. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that I both live and work on the traditional and ancestral territories of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I would also like to acknowledge the Coast Salish and Interior Salish First Nation communities in the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, who have always called this area home. We would also like to thank the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District staff and elected officials for the opportunity we've been provided today to speak about a very important issue that we're all facing: poor treatment of our communities and our natural spaces by our fellow BC residents and some visitors to BC, and how we're working together to address this issue. Next slide. Destination BC, in partnership with the Ministry of Tourism, Arts, Culture and Sport, Indigenous Tourism BC, and other partners, initialized long-term destination development and management planning throughout the province. This work started in 2016 with the first strategy being developed for the Sunshine Coast. This work focuses on the supply side of tourism, and this program is about creating a compelling, seamless experience for residents and visitors. The strategies are about providing a roadmap for developing and managing a destination's potential, be it creating new products and experiences, enhancing or building tourism infrastructure, managing and adjusting policy, overcoming business barriers such as land use or labor issues, or delivering visitor service programs that exceed expectations, to name just a few elements. It is designed to help strengthen BC's competitive position globally and to build long-term sustainable demand. The strategies were created for different planning areas across the province. Planning areas are natural visitor corridors or destinations, like the Sunshine Coast, Highway 3, and the Fraser Valley, that potentially share a common visitor, common experience, and even common tourism development opportunities. In total, 19 strategies across the province have been finalized, with Haida Gwaii still underway. Next slide, please. The Sea to Sky Destination Development and Management Strategy was developed over a 22-month period and involved input from over 400 participants, including SLRD staff, local First Nations, provincial ministries, municipalities, community destination management and marketing organizations, and many others. It is a long-term strategy that will take up to 10 years and numerous partners to implement. Its key themes include encouraging proactive visitor management, developing new tourism products, creating an improved traveler experience, workforce sustainability, and collaborative partnerships. In total, the strategy contains 39 objectives, and one of them, Objective 5, pertains to developing a destination education initiative. Now I will pass things over to Laura Plant, who is an advisor with Destination BC, and she will walk all of you through the key pieces of the Sea to Sky Destination Development and Management Strategy. Next slide. And Laura, over to you.
Jonathan, as mentioned, my name is Laura Plant, and I've been contracted as an advisor with the Vancouver Coast Mountains Tourism Region. And today I'm talking to you from Chilliwack, where I both live and work on the ancestral and traditional Stalo territory. My role as an advisor with Destination BC is to help facilitate the implementation of this destination development strategy. In early 2020, a Sea to Sky Destination Management Council was created with both DMO and municipal representatives from the planning area, as well as organizations such as Indigenous Tourism BC, BC Parks, and the Ministry of Forest, Lands, and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development. In addition, Destination BC has provided support from the Destination Development, Research, and Corporate Communications teams. In my role, I'm fortunate to work with a dedicated group of people on this council who've decided to tackle, as Jonathan mentioned, a very important objective from the strategy. Next slide, please. The Destination Education Initiative is our main focus of the council's work during this year, and we want to tell you just a little bit more about it in the few minutes that we have together today. Next slide, please. So really, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? Well, during the creation of the Destination Development Strategy, it was noted that there are challenges being faced around many things, such as unmanaged camping, the increased need for search and rescue, overuse of some trails, areas, recreation sites, things like that. In addition, we've seen examples in urban centers, such as out of control beach parties or lots of garbage left behind after large events, such as fireworks celebrations and things like that. And I don't need to tell you that this all got worse in 2020 when COVID-19 shut our borders to international visitors and our American friends, and BC residents headed out in record numbers into the outdoors. It was no longer just them who were causing the problem, our visitors, but it was actually us, residents of British Columbia. Next slide, please. So when exploring what we could do to address some of these problems, we researched what other jurisdictions around the world and in some of our local parts of the province were doing to mitigate the negative impacts of both visitation and resident use. And we found lots of examples, many which involve the development of visitor pledges, such as the one you see from the Wilderness Tourism Association or the Pemberton Pledge, which outline the steps that people can take and follow But we also learned that in order to change behavior, we needed to do more. So I'll now pass over to my colleague Karen, who'll tell you a little bit more about the specifics of our initiative.
Had to unmute myself, sorry. Next slide, please. Thanks, Laura, and good morning, everyone. My name is Karen Goodwin, and I am the VP of Destination and Market Development at Tourism Whistler, and I'm also a member of the Sea to Sky Destination Development Council. I would like to acknowledge that I live and work on the traditional and ancestral territories of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Squamish and Lillooet nations. I'd like to throw in just here that we have hired Origin, a creative agency from Whistler. All the staff there, they live and play in our communities. So they really understand the challenges we're trying to overcome with this initiative. So it's great to have them on board. Just going back to Laura's point about looking at these pledges and visitor education programs around the globe. We really realized that they can only go so far in influencing people's behavior. They're successful at building awareness of the values of a destination, but they often lack the power to really elicit that meaningful behavioral change. So we want to create a culture that celebrates responsible behavior, that it's good to behave responsibly in the outdoors, in our communities. So we're aiming to develop this sort of overarching messaging that will create that desire, that want to do the right thing and be responsible. Adventure Smart, Wild Safe BC, Bear Smart, other organizations, they've all developed those specific codes of conduct, those guidelines, etiquette on the how to. So in other words, Adventure Smart is going to tell you how to be safe and responsible in the outdoors, and our messaging is going to create that desire to want to be safe and responsible in the outdoors. So next slide. To tackle this program, we have to create this culture that celebrates responsible behavior in our public spaces. And we all have similar challenges, but we all need to participate and be part of the solution. So if we look at provincial government, local government, destination management and marketing organizations, outdoor user groups, conservation groups, association residents, it's going to take a unified, inclusive approach. All of our partners, all of us, we need to have a vested interest in sharing the same messaging and all get behind this. So next slide. And so what does this look like, and how do we communicate this message? So just to touch on our goals, we want to protect our world-class tourism assets, our recreational opportunities from the negative impacts of overuse, both visitors and residents. And we want to ensure that visitors and residents understand and respect our shared values of our communities within the province. So to do this, we need to message people throughout their journey. So the pre-arrival trip planning, when they're in that phase, through to when they're in our destinations and communities. Examples of what this might look like, we're going to create some engaging video and digital content that can be distributed through all of our channels. So think about your database, your website, social channels, newsletters, reservation confirmation forms, that type of thing. And then look at infrastructure-oriented initiatives such as signage at key points. Think about when people are in parks, campgrounds, attractions, Forest Service roads, amenities, and messaging en route to the destination, so signage along highways. And then we think about local businesses and community organizations. How can they further amplify the message through their channels? So things like storefront windows, restaurant table toppers, check-in desks. And then of course, local government needs to be involved and continue this message on to the residential base. So next slide. What's the current status of where we're at? The council's been very busy, focused on engaging with all the communities up and down the corridor, discussing this whole destination education idea, researching those key themes and challenges we all experience. And then we put it out in a survey to stakeholders, and we managed to get over 600 responses. So a good pickup there. And we're growing that contact list of people and organizations who want to engage and learn more. Then over the last 2 weeks, we've done 12 stakeholder sessions, and some of you might have been part of those, to gain a little more insight and share ideas about how we're going to share this message across our various channels. We met with over 120 people representing 25 communities in the entire Vancouver Coast and Mountains range, not just Sea to Sky, and involved significant provincial organizations. So we had reps from First Nations, provincial ministries, DMOs, outdoor user groups, chambers of commerce. So Origin was involved in all of this, collecting all this information. They're now going to, with this input, create that key messaging, the design graphic materials, the communications toolkit that we can then share back with all of you. And together we can all start activating that message. So we are anticipating that that will, hopefully the first phases of that will come in July. And we look forward to moving forward on this. So next slide, and we're going to pass it back to Jonathan. Oh, you're muted, Jonathan.
Most of the time, it's probably better if I'm muted anyway. So I hope you guys were able to get through with that. But thanks, Lauren and Karen, for that great overview of the work that is undergoing. So this last slide here is the contact information for both Laura and myself, should you want to reach out and learn more or to ask any additional questions beyond this meeting time that we have today. And then next slide. And thank you, everyone. We all appreciate all of you sitting through this presentation around this work, and we're happy to answer any questions if you have any in mind.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation, and I will turn it over to questions. I have Director Demare. Go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. That was really good. And as you know, I did participate in one of the sessions and actually had a good conversation with Karen and Laura. So I've got one question though. I see on the list of groups that are engaged in the process, and you've got Flynn Road there. One of the issues, and we were just discussing it earlier in our meeting, is rec sites. Mm-hmm. On Crown land. And what is Destination BC or this initiative going to work with Flynn Road to create more rec sites and more campsites? Because people are just camping wherever. And it's all about amenities, washrooms, camping facilities, so that we get the people off of the open Crown land, which are legally allowed to do up to 14 days. And but it's an issue. It's an issue of fire. It's an issue with toilet facilities and so on and so forth. So is there any plan from Destination BC at all to work with Flynn Road to actually have more of them up and running? I have a layer on Google Earth that shows all the rec sites and in BC, and it's amazing how many recreation reserves they have. Here at Gun Lake, we've got one rec site active, and we've got 3 inactive. In other words, they're reserves. They're just raw land. So that's just an example. And they're throughout BC, all these rec reserves, and somehow we need to get them active.
Yeah, great question, Director Demare. I would say at this point, Destination BC's role, just in our kind of provincial mandate, isn't operational in the aspect of helping to implement any sort of additional rec sites. Those are based on provincial budgeting to each ministry, and then from each ministry to the individual branches within their ministry. We would work with those organizations to help them figure out where they have capacity for additional space and try to help them navigate users to those additional spaces. To your comments around there's too many users using a lot of space that they shouldn't be using and not treating our areas appropriately. I can tell you from this past weekend, being on a Forest Service road myself, I encountered 2 unattended fires, which I pulled over and put out as I was driving along the road because there was nobody there monitoring their fire. And there is a definite need for better and more responsible behavior from the users of that Crown land, and to have additional rec sites and or trails to help with the additional users of that outdoor Crown land is definitely a needed thing. But until I control the government line item budgets, I only get to do so much. So we will continue to work with our partners at rec sites and trails to help create a better environment for them and their users.
Thank you. I'll go to Director Stoner, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, on the heels of that question, I think I have two follow-ups. One is I appreciate it's not necessarily within the mandate of Destination BC, but I am curious about what advocacy you do in terms of, especially you mentioned in your presentation around a big piece of this is making sure that we have the infrastructure to support good visitor experiences. And right now I would say we don't, especially in the Sea to Sky corridor. So what sort of advocacy do you folks do to the province in order to push for more of that infrastructure? And then my second question is also in light of the infrastructure deficit, is part of the messaging going to include like some gentle language around like how best to move on? So like the parking lot's full, go somewhere else.
Thank you for the questions, Director Stoner. In terms of the parking lot question, those are more operational considerations by the jurisdictional landholder. So if that's a BC Park or if that's a Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, the responsibility of adapting their messaging for that particular operational need of that jurisdictional area would be overseen by that particular ministry. Having said that, we work with those ministries on developing work like this to help inform that operational messaging. So we do regularly chat with our colleagues in the other ministries that are impacted by this work to make sure that they have these as part of their consideration. So that's something that we certainly do. And then you'll have to repeat your first question because I got too excited about the second question.
Yeah, the first question is recognizing it's typically outside of your mandate, but what advocacy do you do to the province and the other ministries in terms of increasing infrastructure, knowing that that's such a critical part to good visitor experience?
Well, you know, if I still lived in Souk, I would just see Premier Horgan at the Bluegrass Festival on the Souk Flats and then just ask him over a beer to get it done. But seeing as how we're, you know, things are different and I'm in a provincial crown corporation now, what happened throughout the process of the creation of the destination development strategies is that all of the destination development strategies were sent through to the other ministries to consider in their planning cycles. So that was the first step, to make sure that all of this information was collected by those ministries to put into operations. Specific tourism amenities and tourism infrastructure, those are essentially based on a community by community basis. So for instance, Hope might need, you know, 2 new bathrooms in the town square or a additional 5 parking spots. So we work with our partners to try to enable them to implement those changes. There's other programs out there that are used towards additional, you know, infrastructure, whether or not that's tourism related or resident related. There's a very blurry line in that area because residents are also tourists and tourists are also residents. So there's that piece of it too. So if we're looking at things like additional restrooms on the highway, you know, we work with our partners at the Ministry of Transportation to make sure that that need is identified and then try to get it included in the planning cycle for their next, you know, planning period. So we work with communities to actively figure out what it is that we need. We use our research as well to figure out where an amenity is needed, what kind of amenity is needed, and then make a recommendation based on the research and the data that we have developed. So a lot of things go into how a piece of tourism infrastructure is then identified and then implemented. There are other programs that have come out, you know, that have, it's kind of, as we've titled it, the manna from heaven approach, where government has, you know, littered our various groups within the province over the past 1.5 years with different funding programs to help with different projects. So in the past year, we've seen multiple programs come out that have helped communities implement tourism infrastructure projects, such as, you know, and I'll give you an example, the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program, which had applications open last September for about a month, and then evaluations were done under 4 different program streams, such as heritage, arts and culture, destination development, and then rural development. So different programs have been coming out through the province to help support a lot of these destination development initiatives with funding behind them. So communities have identified different projects in which they would like to apply, such as Pemberton. Pemberton received a grant through this program to implement, I believe it was 9 outhouses throughout the trail system in Pemberton. So that was one of the projects that was funded through the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program. There's been other ones such as the Targeted Regional Tourism Development Initiative program, which is allocated to support destination development priorities across the Vancouver Coast and Mountains region. So some of those, a lot of that money actually has been allocated against projects in the Sea to Sky corridor, which is essentially Bowen Island, North Vancouver, West Vancouver, all the way up through Lillooet. And they're supporting rec sites and trails, they're supporting BC parks and other groups. So there are some different funding opportunities that come out from government in which we're working with our partners in all the communities to help identify the appropriate projects. So I hope that answers that question with a very long-winded answer. So if you're ever short on short answers, and Laura, you can add in because I see you have your hand.
In terms of advocacy, it was a small step, but the council in Sea to Sky, as well as Sunshine Coast and Fraser Valley, all were part of the letter writing campaign in whatever month it was, March, trying to encourage the government to increase resourcing for BC parks and rec sites and trails. There was some success there. I think everyone recognized that's not the end of the project and that there's more of that needed. But what was so great about those letters, they were quite frankly easy to write because there were so many things we could pull from the strategy that backed up our request and acknowledged what some of the issues were. So it was very easy to write, and we'd already, you know, all that work, background work has been done about validating why we're asking for what we're asking for. So I think my guess is that councils will continue to want to do that type of activity as well.
Yeah, and then to Laura's point there is the Tourism Industry Association of BC that does advocacy on behalf of issues that are impacting tourism. And then there's other avenues such as the communities that are voicing their opinions at UBCM and other venues such as that. So there are multiple areas in which we try to influence or enable or have discussions or bring subjects to light based on need.
Okay. Go ahead, Director Rainbow, and then we've got to wrap this up because we've gone over our 10 minutes on this. But thank you.
Jen.
I appreciate the no, it's fine. It's a great conversation. But go ahead, Director Rainbow.
I'll just be really quick now. There's a problem in this whole business of tourism. We've got communities and businesses in the Sea to Sky who need tourists to come. We need people to come and to spend money to enjoy themselves and so on and so forth. But we've also got areas within the regional district where we don't want people to come, where there are too many people coming already, and we don't need them there. Or if we're going to accept that they are going to come, then we need to come up with a lot more facilities. It's not just a roadside washroom. You know, and I'll speak directly about the Upper Squamish Valley. There's a far more powerful advertising tool affecting that area than Destination BC, and that's social media. And people flock up there at weekends, and they go there. Some of them go there because they can't get into a BC campsite. And you'll see trailers up there, and generally those people will behave responsibly. And they're self-contained, and they'll pack it in, pack it out, that kind of thing. But a lot of other people go up there because they don't want the restrictions of BC campsites. So you've got that whole kind of enforcement thing, and there's no other way of dealing with it. You know, you could come up with all kinds of pledges and pamphlets and pictures and so on. And the kind of people we're talking about, I'm sorry, they're either not going to read them or they're not going to care. So you've got within this whole tourism industry, you've got you wanting to attract the right kind of people that are going to come and visit the businesses and spend their money and help the economy of this area. We absolutely need that, but we've got this other serious problem, which is degrading the environment. It's risky. You talked about putting out a couple of fires. We have that kind of situation happening. And so that somehow, you certainly need to be aware of that in the work that you do. And somehow we have to find a way to advocate with the ministers involved to find a solution to that.
Yeah, Director Rainbow, I think that's a very valid point. I myself have been up into the Upper Squamish Valley and not been a part of what's going on, but I wanted to observe what was going on. And I think that there's some issues up there that definitely have to be addressed. Tourists don't really know about the Upper Squamish Valley. This is locals going up there, and because they know it's where they can go, and it's where they can go have an unsupervised good time and not have to worry too much about enforcement. And I think that's a big part of the issue that we're facing, is that, much like Chilliwack in the Chilliwack River Valley, they're experiencing the same thing, where it's their locals are going into that space because they can go there, they can be in crowds, and they can then, behave however they want to, because there isn't enough enforcement to change behavior through, penalties. So that is definitely something that we're trying to address through some of this messaging, and like many other places, in the disrespect of those natural places, there are various ministries aware of how people are treating those areas, and bullet holes going into signs, people being disrespectful, and I can't agree with you more on a lot of those comments. So this project is hopefully trying to address this issue, not just in the Upper Squamish Valley, but in many areas of this province that are experiencing very similar issues. And this is something where, having lived in Souk previously, Highway 14, where we have 5 amazing BC parks along that highway, not enough parking. People would park on the highways, dogs would get hit, people would get hit, cars would get towed. It's, so there are people that are residents that are going out and using these spaces inappropriately, and we need to try to do something about it, because the current arc of behavior is not sustainable.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I am grateful for your time and your ongoing work, and we look forward to seeing what comes next.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, again, always feel free to follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so I would like to come to some kind of conclusion, if you want, on our UBCM discussion, because we do need to do the work to get ready for June 23rd meeting to make sure that we get our requests in by June 30th. What I've heard, and I've added a few that we've talked about in months past, is that a minister meeting with Minister Conroy regarding parks and trails, rec sites, and old growth. They are separate discussions. They may be separate conversations. And what we might see is that we'll be offered a meeting with ministerial staff on one topic, and then with the minister herself on one topic, because there's very little chance that you can talk about all of these items with her in a 15-minute meeting. Maybe they give us a longer meeting with her. Maybe they give us a longer meeting with her ministerial staff. I think that's fine, so long as we can get these issues in front of her. She is so incredibly in touch with her topics. Like she's just, you can say, I've sat and chatted with her for an hour, and she's just very open to talking about everything. So, so that's one. So I'm just going to list these for this, just to put them out there for conversation, and then we can certainly circle back. Or why don't we? Does anybody want to meet with this minister? And then what we'll do is we'll assign board members to these topics, and then you can come back with your sort of fleshed out backgrounder for the June 23rd meeting. And then does that help staff if we kind of do it this way? Yeah, okay. So who would like to take on old growth? I think Vivian. And then we can also have someone pair with you. So maybe we just go for the leads so that we're not all scrambling. Does that work? Parks and Trails, Tony. Okay. And then rec sites, I think, falls into that same category.
I think,
However,
Jen,
yeah, go ahead.
Flynn Road doesn't do parks.
Flynn Road doesn't do parks.
Separate.
Yeah. And I'd also like to see FSRs. on
MOE.
FSRs.
Forest Service
Yes.
roads.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
Okay.
on that.
Okay. Who would do parks?
Parks?
Parks BC. So separate. That's a ministry.
That's a different ministry.
Okay. Would that fall under the tourism ministry?
No, Ministry of Environment.
Oh, so that's Heyman. Okay.
Yeah, last year we actually met with Flynn Row and that ministry to talk about very similar topics.
Okay.
Your notes are still relevant, Sal.
Okay. Okay. So then Heyman, so then we've got Tony and Sal.
Yeah.
For that. Okay. Then I have Minister Mark with the minister. She's tourism and sport and culture. I think that she needs to advocate as well on sort of this Destination BC, loop that in. I think she's harder to get a minister meeting with though. Or is this a topic that we want to continue to go down on kind of the tourism angle? We can put that one aside. The next one is Minister Fleming with Modi. And our three topics there are regional transit, general road maintenance, and the hydro road on Paradise Valley. So I think that those, again, will be, and there's also Minister Ma, who is infrastructure, but I think she's more roads, and Minister Fleming kind of takes on regional transit. So maybe it's Ma with, well, we can put this out to them and they'll tell us which minister is going to handle it, I think. But is everyone in favor of those three requests for two ministers? Okay, and sorry, go ahead, Jack.
I just wanted to say, I think it's been a while since we've had the conversation regarding transit, and I don't want to diminish those other issues at all. But we had that conversation previously about roads. It feels to me like it's one that I think we've been most successful when Russell has had access to staff, or it feels like we've been most successful on staff conversations. You know, like I remember Russell got in a truck with one of their team and drove the roads and showed them all of the problem areas, which seemed to get some level of response. And same with former Director Demare did the same thing on Road 40. And so I just think it's critical that we put some time aside to put a stake in the ground on regional transit and try and get this accomplished. So maybe my suggestion is two different meetings, one regarding regional transit and one regarding roads, and maybe the roads one can include more of their ministerial staff and more of our staff. Okay,
I like that. Everyone good with that? And I think that's a much bigger meeting. And I know that staff have been working together with all the CAOs have been working together on the regional transit piece. So we'll put that sort of as our kind of bigger meeting. Not that any of these are less important, but I think that each of us can kind of take on pieces of this. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Director Rainbow.
With regard to the transit, I agree that we really need to focus on that. But would it be worth us looking at a sort of a joint meeting with municipalities and the regional district, talking about transit rather than separately?
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
So yeah, I was kind of going to say, you know, the process you're going through right now and identifying leads when you were getting to transit, I was definitely going to put my hand up to be on that meeting. In terms of leading and putting a background together, to Tony's point, I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to put my own narrative or just the SLRD, you know, a few of us here putting my own narrative together for it. I think somehow, you know, we've all been hoping to get the transit committee together. So I don't know where we're at with that, but I think let's book the meeting. And then in terms of the information and the ask and the approach, that's something that has to come out of the committee.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's what I meant as far as the CAOs and the committee work.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, moving on. I think we have an opportunity to sit down with either Minister for Family and Child Development, Minister Dean, or with Minister Chen on childcare. Pemberton has identified, and I'm sure Pemberton will ask for that meeting, but I think Pemberton and Squamish should definitely ask for that meeting, and it can be under this, or you guys can go separately. But I think we have a strong relationship with them that we should capitalize on if we can. You good with that, Mike?
Yeah, I'm sure Chen is anxious to see me again. So yeah, I'm happy to do it wherever. You know, we haven't talked about meetings yet at council. I won't say part of you wants to say why bother, because I've had about 4 meetings with her on this, but I've promised her that she's going to keep seeing me until things change. So yeah, I'm happy to be part of that.
Okay. Anyone else? I think we're good with that. Any interest in Minister Bear citizen services regarding connectivity in the regional, in the kind of upper regional areas? Or are we moving along with that CAO Helmer with those grants that we've applied for? I feel like it's entrained, but I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to sit with her if you feel it's a good opportunity.
Thank you, Chair. So at this point, the project looking into the gaps is on hold until we got to the point where those grant opportunities were available and we knew the outcome. We have no further information at this time to add to that. We're still just in a waiting mode. So it's at your discretion if you think that this would be good to continue to push that priority.
Anybody? Okay, we'll put that one on hold. The other one, I don't know where this sits, but I'm thinking of the policing, because policing is quite a large topic right now as far as management of the parks and access to the parks and access to the whole corridor and just really the safety of the highways. Do we request a meeting with Minister Farnworth on public safety? I imagine he's a tough one to get. Vivian?
It's just, certainly in Area B, it's the conservation officer service that needs to be enhanced. So I don't know if that fits in there, but that I definitely would like to lobby for that, for what it's worth.
Okay. Anyone else on that topic?
If we can get a meeting with Farnworth, I think it's worth. It would be worth it. I agree with you. It might be difficult to do.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting kind of follow up to the letter we sent asking for more resources for summer traffic outside of our existing budgets?
Yeah, and just like a coordinated effort rather than it being in a silo of RCMP has super limited budgets and therefore we get what we get?
Yeah, I'll volunteer Karen for that one.
Okay. I'm sure she's happy to take that. Okay, everyone good with that? And then the last one I have, again, super hard minister to get in front of is Minister Dix. And I'm sure this year will be no different, but maybe it's minister staff, just with the resolution we've sent forward on basic dental care into the MSP. They've made a commitment, but they haven't followed through on it. So that's why I would like to get in front of him on that. I'm sure he's going to be inundated with COVID questions. And so to give him a breath of different might be useful. We might get what we ask for. But that's just sort of a small ask. Go ahead, Vivian.
Would it be appropriate to introduce sort of rural healthcare with Mr. Dix and how it's sort of falling apart in the north here, not just Lillooet. The problems we're having are similar in many of the small communities in the north.
Yes, if you have specific examples or a specific resolution that you could flesh out before June 23rd, I'm open to it. It's
I have
really
to think about that. It's a very difficult situation right now, and it may still be in September. But just as a pencil note for now,
yeah.
If it's resolved here, I'll certainly speak to it.
Yeah. Okay. I think primary care has been under attack for sure because there's just so few GPs coming out of schools, and there's definitely
No. We have lots of doctors. It's the way they're funded and the way they're placed, and don't get me going.
I won't. I won't. But let's take that offline. Anyone else go ahead, Director Pettengill.
Yeah, thanks. And maybe this is Minister of Environment. I touched base with Mayor Elliott just by email, and she mentioned invasive species. I'm not up to speed with the discussions at the SLRD on that, but I'm not sure if that's one we should be considering.
So Minister Heyman or staff?
Yeah, it looks like it's a cross-ministerial sort of body that's dealing with that. So I'm assuming that Ministry of Environment would be the primary, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay. Shall I put Karen's name on that for now? I'll follow up to each of you with emails on this. Go ahead, Director Birch-Jones.
I just remember Director Rainbow and I were talking about last year bringing something forward about, not having plant nurseries sell invasive species. And we found there already had been a resolution to that effect. Do you remember that, Tony? But
yeah.
There's probably a little more work to do on that front. I'm interested in that file as well.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what the push is, so.
Would that be more in the form of a resolution, or would that be a minister's meeting?
No, the resolutions have been done and sort of accepted and endorsed and so on, but I don't think there's been much action at the provincial level. If there has, I haven't heard of it. So yeah, I think it would be worth following up, and the pitch to them would be that we have a provincial rule that says that you can't sell invasive species in nurseries. It seems such a simple thing, but obviously it's not simple because they haven't done it. But I think we do need to follow up with that.
Okay, Director Clark, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just referring to the last resolution on that. So that was from February 2020. I believe it came out of a director's report from Director Rainbow, and the resolution is that the SLRD not prepare another UBCM resolution regarding invasive species, and instead send a letter to the Ministry of Forests with reference to the 2017 resolution and provincial response on the ban of sale of invasive species, additional comments based on the UN Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, asking for an update on what the province has done regarding the sale of invasive species, stressing once more that some action at the provincial level is required to stem the practice of retailers selling invasive plants and then taxpayers funding efforts to remove them. Supporting letters from the Sea to Sky Invasive Species Council and the Lillooet Regional Invasive Species Society, and a letter signed by the 4 member municipalities endorsing the SLRD's letter. So that happened right before COVID. So nothing, and then the next part is that the SLRD request a meeting with the Minister of Forests at the 2020 UBCM convention unless positive news is received about action the province has taken. So none of that was action last year due to COVID. But just a little background on where we got with that last year.
Thank you, that's helpful. Okay, so yeah, certainly let's, unless there's any final burning ones that we've missed, send us an email over the coming weeks with, and you can certainly discuss amongst yourselves if there's any more that you want to bring forward. But I am satisfied with this list at this time, and I'll share these with you all and with the different leads, and we'll move on if that's okay. Go ahead, Director Clark.
Thanks, Chair. Do you want a summary in the minutes, or you're gonna take it all on?
Yeah, we'll do it in the next meeting. It'll be reflected in the next meeting minutes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Jack.
Just before off of UBCM, there was some discussion about, since we will be able to potentially be back in person with each other, that though UBCM will be a virtual meeting, maybe we could do something that was in person with the region. And I just wanted to raise it as something that maybe be on a future agenda.
Planning for our UBCM blowout. I can't wait. Let's I'm
happy for you to refer to it as a blowout, but if the minutes could reflect that it's your word rather than mine, I'd appreciate it.
All right. Go ahead, Director Clark.
Thanks, Chair. So if that discussion's finished, if we could have a resolution just to receive your verbal. Thank you.
Great. Moved by Director Birch-Jones, seconded by Director Rainbow. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so there's no late business for this committee of the whole. Could I have someone move that we go into closed? Moved by Director Stoner, seconded by Director Demare. Anyone opposed?
Just to ask if we can have a break in between the two?
I'm not done yet, Director Birchtown. I'm just getting this motion through. Because Kristen is going to take us. Kristen's going to take us off live feed, and I